My name is Frank Salzgeber. I'm the head of Technology Transfer Program Office in the European Space Agency, which is more or less the recycling office of the agency. So we take bridges, ideas, technology, and we reuse them, repurpose them, and recycle them. And before we start the super interesting session, and we have exciting speakers, I have to excuse Karen. She's at home in Sweden with fever and bad, and she apologized. She would love to come here, but traveling with 40 fever is not very healthy, and we said then she should stay at home, which is a pity because she has a project speaking about human spaceflight in the spaceport in the north of Sweden. So I think you should Google her story. It's an exciting one, but we feel very sorry, and we hope she's better pretty soon. All right. There's a reason why I'm here, because, as I said, we take care of part of the innovation of the European Space Agency. And when we're looking, I always have pictures of my kids in my presentation. This is my son, Johannes. And he was 5 years old, and he was on the red slope in the mountains of Bavaria to the border to Austria. And he was falling already 5 times. You see, he's still smiling. It was the first day when he was going down the red slopes, was 5 years. And this is about also when we speak about entrepreneurship, and he has no fear and little respect. And this is a story which I see is not only about young entrepreneurs. Even when in our society a lot of people were young, when you see Steve Jobs was 21 years old, Werner von Braun was 26 when he was becoming head of Paanemunde as a technical director. I think we have to stay young in our minds. And this is what I try to teach my kids, to stay young in the minds. And when we brought Peter Diamandis 3 years ago to Aztec and speaking with our startup companies, he was standing in front of our startups, and he looked to them and said, you know what? The big corporates have fears in the eyes when they see you, because you have no respect. So this is what I think is also about entrepreneurship, to question things. Why? And doing things even when the people say it's not possible. This we try to do in ESA. This is a nice curve, which we start 8 years ago, where we support 100 startup companies a year, which we want to grow further. We have at the moment 11 incubation centers. We take care of the IP portfolio, especially patents of ESA. But of course, we're taking care also about technology transfer, taking a product, reuse it, repurpose, recycle it in a total different market field. And trust me, when we're looking to the recycling rate of paper, we are great, 80%, plastic, maybe not so good, but steel, 70%. If you ask what is the recycling rate of our innovation, trust me, it's very, very bad. And this is also about entrepreneurship, not maybe inventing something new, have the innovation in technology which were already existing, and we hear about stories also during today. Only a small chart where you see we try to cover our member states, so we're growing, even when our budget is only 0.15% of the ESA budget. So we try to take care of governmental money very well. Anyhow, thank you for coming so early. I think this is one of the most exciting panels because there are really people made it, or will made it, or have already made it, let's see. And the normal way how we proceed today, we invite our panelists, they make a small presentation, and after the presentation, the next speaker is coming, and then we have an interesting discussion amongst each other. I told already to the panelists, if they don't bring critical question up, they don't get coffee in the break. The same is for you. So I expect that you really come up with questions, what we should do different, what we should change, and really get the essence out of the entrepreneurs. So I think, Max, you're the first, at least. Can we click to the slide where we see the order of names? I think Max was first. The floor is yours. I'm very excited because Max is one of our startups we had the pleasure to support. He's using a technology from the International Space Station, reused it, recycled it, and yeah, I'm handing over. Max, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frank. So let me give you a little bit of a background on myself. Obviously, I was founded at, well, we were founded at GLIC originally. So Frank and I have known each other for over 5 years, perhaps. I'm British, but a global nomad, let's say, despite the accent. Grew up abroad, Middle East, Austria, before I went to the UK to study physics. There, I was, let's say, I wanted to become an astronaut, right? I was a typical geek. Towards the end of my degree, and during my degree, I got more and more interested in entrepreneurship, and I decided to one day have to start a company. At the same time, I got offered a job at ESA. But space is cool, let's go and explore Holland. 1.5 years into the young graduate trainee program, I started Giora. Today, that was in 2010. Today, we're 5 people, we've received private investment, and we're in open dialogue with 3 to 4 commercial partners and busy getting our prototype commercially ready for the market. Okay, so what's the why? Why did we start Giora? What was the reason? So obviously, like any entrepreneur, I wanted to build something, to grow something. But also, there was a climate agenda behind it. CO2 is generally seen as a bad thing, something negative, and it's causing a problem in the atmosphere. At ESA, we were working on a technology that was capturing CO2 in a very efficient, novel manner to recycle it on a spacecraft cabin. So we thought, well, if we can apply this to the atmosphere, then great. Possible climate mitigation solution. We just take out the CO2, we put back into the atmosphere. Okay, at that point, we wanted to save the world, we wanted to store tons and tons of CO2 underground, and it took us about 2 years to figure out that actually we don't have a business model there. It's just too expensive to do that. So then we started looking at smaller scale applications, greenhouses, industrial CO2 supply where we utilize the CO2. Still too large scale for us. So we pivoted again, and now we're on the micro scale, the gram level. And what we saw actually is that when you compare CO2 supply on a large scale, let's say tons per day, compared to a micro scale, let's say grams, you get an exponential increase in the price that's paid. You go from 40 euros per ton to maybe 4,000 euros per ton. So we were competitive. And then all of a sudden, different markets opened up, like urban farming, personal beverage carbonation, aquariums. And we saw all these different sectors. So in general, we still have the aim to one day provide a carbon mitigation solution, but our approach now is to find a commercially sustainable business model through which we can grow and adapt to the technology that one day can help climate change. Let's see. We were at the ESA Business Incubation Center for 2 years. We received another funding grant from GLIC, which is a pan-European startup accelerator, and then we were accepted onto the Startup Bootcamp Accelerator in Amsterdam, 2014. And a week after the demo day, we received our first private investors. Thank you. That's it in a nutshell.
Come to the pleasant seats to me here. This is the advantage when you speak, you get better seats than you have. The next speaker, I'm also very happy that he is here, Michael. The floor is yours. I always say, we talked yesterday about prices, making things cheaper, better. I think this you did with your company, and you brought us some slides. Michael, the floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, I don't like to use slides during presentation, but so probably just as a, yeah. 4 years ago, when I decided to, with my partners, to set up a company in Russia, private space company, I asked Martin Sweeting how it was possible to create the company in a country with a, let's say, good history and background and heritage in a space area, in a pretty competitive environment, but still create one of the most remarkable company in the industry? And he said the answer was very simple. Answer was very simple because Margaret Thatcher actually put the budget, space budget of UK to 0, and there was no bureaucrats to manage space. And so in this environment, for him, it was easy to create a company. So we started our company in a little bit another situation with a lot of bureaucrats in the country who want to manage everything. But still, it was unexpectedly easy to do at the beginning because nobody before us was trying to build private spacecraft, so it was no regulation about this. So it was probably easier than come to any other markets. And actually, we had a pretty good support, especially at the time, because we actually brought the chief of Russian Space Agency to Elon Musk at the time when nobody believed that finally it can be successful and big, let's say, not already startup, but company. And after this door was opened, and so we were happy to be in the right time and in the right place. Now its situation is not as easy as you understand, because now Russian economy and space industry is especially becoming a pretty close isolation. Isolation not only for money, brains, technology, it's even become more difficult to talk with the people. I mean, because people is afraid talking with Russians. We are toxic. And having like Russians people involved in a company is a little bit toxic. We had a couple investments in US, and the company actually located in NASA Ames, and NASA Ames always asks us, I mean, what Russians are doing here? And I said, no, you can see it just nearby another company with Russians inside. Google with Sergey Brin. So what's the difference? We are Russians, he's Russians. But anyhow, yeah, we created. Okay, can you put the presentation? We created the company with the idea because Russian space industry is huge. It's actually number, let's say 3 or 4, probably by parity purchase power. It's maybe number 2 in the world. But the idea of creating low-cost satellites and actually serve the demand of a local economy with the satellites was almost in ignorance for a long time. The all space program was very expensive, very long, many years. And we come to a pretty good situation, especially because the space area for Russia is somehow something like a sacred. I mean, if you look, I mean, what was the 20th century for Russians? The only probably things you can be proud of is Gagarin. So it gives us some, let's say, basement, it gives us some support, but at the same time, any type of the mistakes that we are doing will be mentally pretty heavily punished also by Russian society, because there are no another subject in a Russian industry that has the same close attention of the public opinion as a space area. But we were happy. We actually started our company, just as I said, 3 years ago, when me and my partners, we all was like a physicist from almost Soviet time, but we were successful in another business. We sold our companies 5 years ago. It was in different in other sectors like in agriculture, in retail, and started to invest in the space area. Last year we launched 3 satellites. All satellites was successful. It's, let's say, operating till now, and it's like, if you compare this with an unsuccessful rate, sometimes with the government companies, definitely pretty appealing. We have like a good backlog of the customers, both Russian and international. Yes, actually the sanctions and everything that has happened in Russian-Western relation almost closed for us Western market. and make collaboration with the West almost impossible. So we try to refocus to Asia, and with a couple projects we were successful, signed a contract and start to perform this contract, and now this is our metric of our company. We raised just directly in the capital more than $30 million, but actually we received also different another funding to the company, and this was because of our somehow uniqueness to be the only and the first private player in Russia. We have more than $200 million backlog, and now several satellites in preparation. The next year we will launch at least 3 satellites. It's difficult to say what will be projected revenue in 2020, but yeah, we hope it will be pretty big. And so we're trying to now to follow almost the same mode like SSTL had in UK many years ago. And unfortunately, the first our strategy to create in Russia the commercial operator and selling data, now we understand it's commercially not viable, because with a Russian operator under the current situation will not be able to both promote the data with Russian origin and also to raise enough capital to deploy constellation. So we need to modify our strategy, and Dauri Aerospace now focusing for the next 5-10 years actually to build a satellite system, and we see that this is pretty big and huge market in Russian Asian countries, and so this is actually big change of our strategy. We don't know how long this situation will last. I think it will be for a long time, not years, maybe like decades. So we need to know how to survive and live in new environment. And it's actually for us it's easier than for classical satellite builders, because we do not use like a space qualified components. So it doesn't mean that we can take components from MacBooks, but still it's much easier to build the space system for us, and effectively they finally more reliable than those that was built from space qualified system. I would be happy to answer your questions. Sorry for this like a little bit messy and not like a so happy presentation, because it's definitely for us it's like tough time. We are trying to learn how to live in a new environment, but yeah, we are where we are. I mean, we cannot choose our motherland. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It would be interesting to see you in 3 years when we will present this slide again and what has changed. Our next speaker, I'm super happy that he is here. Scott, the floor is yours. And I think later we'll have some questions to the latest deal which you made in Spain, but maybe you speak about that yourself. Scott, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to tell you a little more about what we're doing at EarthCast, which is trying to democratize the Earth observation industry. And to us, that means taking imagery and data and content that really has only been available to a few people, governments, large corporations, astronauts, and try to open that up for everybody else and take a view of space and see if we can open it up in a way that allows entrepreneurs, innovators, small companies to tap into that data. And then with that, of course, you can impact, if you take pictures of Earth from space are incredibly expensive. Satellites, of course, are expensive. Space is hard. Everything about it costs a lot of money, the launch, the construction, whatever else. But if you can somehow cheat the economics, you have the ability to open up new markets. And so what we did at EarthCast, we started the company about 4.5 years ago in my basement with an opportunity to install 2 cameras on the Russian segment of the International Space Station. And through a variety of partnerships and introductions and kind of being at the right place at the right time, we had the opportunity. So we signed kind of an initial joint venture agreement. No one really knew what it meant, but at the end of the day, it was that we would give Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, the cameras, and they would do the launch, the installation, the power, the downlink, and then we would split the data. They would take the data of Russia and they give it to the ministries of forestry, farming, mapping, Coast Guard kind of stuff, which is what you do with pictures of Earth from space on one hand, and then we would take the imagery of the rest of the world and do two things with it. One is sell it to people who want pictures of Earth from space, which is the Earth observation industry on one hand, and then secondly, take it, process it, and stream it online in as near real time as we can. And so since we started the company about 4.5 years ago, we had the cameras built and launched. The cameras cost about $35 million. We signed an agreement to install 2 more cameras on the NASA side, on the US side of the space station. We announced an agreement actually just last week to build out the world's first integrated SAR and optical, so radar and optical constellation, using essentially other partners' money. And then just earlier this week, we announced an agreement to buy Deimos Imaging, which is a Spanish-based satellite company. They have 2 satellites up there. So the goal of all this, we view ourselves as a media company, as a content company. It just so happens that our content comes from cameras in space. And so the goal of all this is to generate more content, more imagery, more data than anyone has ever seen before, and try to open up new markets. And historically, when you think about the Earth observation, we view it as a pyramid. And at the top, you've got government customers who are typically quite picky. They really want what they want. They're kind of difficult to work with. But they're used to paying $20,000 or $30,000 for a picture of Earth from space because satellites are expensive. The last commercial satellite that went up to space cost about $800 million. And now some digital globe. And of course, the imagery is spectacular and it works and it's really high resolution. And I mean, basically, they sell to the U.S. government, and it's a great business. Our thesis at EarthCast is that we can change the cost of space, we can build out an infrastructure to open up new markets. And so when you go down the pyramid, so you've got the government at the top, and then just below that you have the B2B. So the B2G, business to government, is at the top, and then just below that would be business to business. And that includes analytics, information, business intelligence. And so there's some screenshots up there. We've got about 20 people down in San Francisco who are building out our web platform. And the idea is we take our data from our cameras, we take data from other partners' cameras, we take data from these 2 satellites that we just bought earlier this week from Deimos. We take it, wrap that into a API, and then allow other developers to make games, apps, educational tools, all built around an open source API, something that takes our data and pushes it into their application. And that's everything from counting cars in Walmart's parking lot to predict revenue based on the number of cars. And so they used to send out students or university type people to go through and count the cars in these parking lots. And if there was 80 cars in that parking lot today, they knew that revenue in that store was going to be 80 times $200. It would be X amount. We can do things like take our imagery and merge it with ship imagery, AIS. So all ships, there's a couple of screenshots. So the one at the bottom left there is a AIS image, which is automatic identification system. Any ship that is over about 40 feet long has a beacon. It's a little bit like a plane. It has a beacon on it. And so they can track these from satellites in space, of course. And if the ship has a beacon that's been turned off, if the beacon says it's supposed to be over here, but the ship happens to be over here, if the beacon is, or if the ship is using someone else's beacon, and that ship happens to be off the east coast of Africa, it's probably a pirate. So they can use different types of data to come up with information, and then they can deliver that to the European Coast Guard or whatever it is. The bottom right-hand side, laying Earth observation imagery on top of a GIS data layer. The bottom right-hand side, actually, or the top right, change detection, monitoring parking lots, pipelines, taking pictures of the coffee farms in South America to determine if it's going to be a good year for coffee, the price of coffee is probably going to go down. If it's going to be a bad year for coffee, the price of coffee is going to be, it's probably going to go up. So this is the Earth observation market. We fit into that, and that would be the business to business. And at the bottom is the consumers, is the rest of us. We feel if we can take our imagery, Earth from space, and stream it online in as near real time as we can, everybody in the world is going to want to come once. If you can see Earth live in kind of near real time, maybe a few hour delay, everybody in the world is going to want to come once. And if we can get people there once, they'll probably want to come twice. And then we need to build that into a community, some place where people want to go, where the information is changing, it's compelling, it's updating. And the idea with, of course, certainly cameras on the space station is you can log in and find out when it's going to be above you next. So you can enter your address, you can see a picture of your house taken 2 days, 2 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks, kind of scroll back and forth in time and see how things have changed, seasons or construction or forestry or whatever it is. And then at the same time, you can enter your address and find out when it's going to be above you next. It'll be above you in 5 hours and 57, 56, 55 minutes. You can organize your outdoor event around when you get imaged from space. Your wedding, your corporate event, your friends in white shirts on a green field spelling out, "I love you, will you marry me?" We take all that data, we wrap that up in an API, and then we just kind of stream it online. And then allow developers to make games, apps, all with the purpose of taking imagery, Earth observation imagery, which really hasn't been available to anybody ever before, and trying to open it up to as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Amazing story. I have more questions here than you can answer today, and the rest of you too. Nevertheless, we try to have a view of the entire world, as you do from the space station. Therefore, I would like to invite our next speaker, which has made also the wide way from South Africa. Our colleagues is Sias. The floor is yours. So we have not only from the countries which we expect entrepreneurs, but also from South Africa. We're excited, yes.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So just as you can get old and young entrepreneurs, you can get also other entrepreneurs. I believe Elon Musk was also, anyway. Some background, I think the next slide, let me start with the first slide. So I come from a domain where we have been busy in small satellite engineering for the last, in fact, 23 years. And it's just last night that I met somebody that when I got introduced into the world of space, was in fact in Japan at the International Space University in 1992. And I met one of the staff of that event last night again from 23 years ago. And working inside a university in an engineering faculty, we developed the capability, mostly due to launch delays, of a complete intellectual property, if you like, for building small satellites. And that led to the formation of a company in 2000 called Sun Space and Information Systems. And Sun Space Information Systems, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, was there to build small satellites. In fact, Sun Space did build a few small satellites. They were launched, operating well. But the challenge was that if you build small satellites and nobody uses them in an economically effective way, if you've just seen before, then it's very difficult to sustain a program like that in a country with an emerging space program. Now, up to 2011, South Africa did not have a space agency, never mind a space program. So there wasn't even a hint of government support. And from the first speaker, it's clear that's a good time to start a company in space. So we formed SunSpace, and in fact, in 2008, I left SunSpace after being one of the founding members, as I could not convince my colleagues at the time to change direction and to diversify and to be adaptable to the economic environment. And subsequently, SunSpace was taken over by the government in the middle of 2013. So it now belongs to a government state-owned enterprise in South Africa. So what I did in 2008 with some partners is to form a company called Space Commercial Services, which is an oxymoron at the time, really to focus on how do we apply the benefit of space infrastructure to processes, basic economic processes and socioeconomic development processes on the ground. So the second slide there says something about us. We're a group of companies. We have a number of activities because space engineers at the system level are not the same kind of people that are in the component business, which are not the same kind of people that are developing applications. So we're a cluster of activity. And in this cluster of activity, we provide a number of services. On the one hand, we help people to build commercial space programs, and we are involved in a number of those. We provide decision-making solutions using space information, which is right at the end of the user. So we have people supplying into the insurance industry in South Africa. Most of the major insurance companies in fixed assets are our customers. We help them to understand geospatial information, integrate satellite data into their workflow processes. And then we also provide these services and some products in satellite components to the international market. So we export to about 12 different countries around the world. Some major milestones in the company. 1st of June 2008, I walked out of Sunspace and started a new company with some partners. It's actually quite a scary event for those who wanted to try that. And we started out with space applications, trying to see how do we translate what is available. And we very quickly realized that there's not enough geospatial data available. As crazy as it sounds, and you've just heard the previous speaker, there's just not, for many of the applications that we wanted to do, there was just not enough data available. About 1 year later, we started space engineering. We saw a niche in the market for doing system engineering in small satellite programs. And then in 2013, we saw a niche in the market as we saw the new space domain coming on stream. How do you use small satellites, microsatellites, in a commercially effective way? We saw an opportunity to start a satellite component company which serves exactly that market, components which are available at a price point which makes business cases easier to realize. And then in March of this year, we in fact created a company that is local to South Africa, focused on the local South African government, and taking the transition from the infrastructure for assembly, integration, and testing that is required for space engineering and translating that into other sectors within the South African economy, like the transport sector and the energy sector, where there are large-scale investments happening on an annual basis. And we're trying to say, how do we use our expertise and our competency in an economic area which is also extremely important for South Africa. Some key experiences, milestones. This question was posed to us in preparation of the session, so I thought, well, it's a good thing to think about. Well, we started June 2008. We did, in fact, have an early investor in one of the space application areas. In fact, since then, we've been self-funded. In fact, it was not long after the start that we actually sold our first business case. We developed a business case around satellite telecommunication. We found that to capitalize this was beyond our capability at the time, so we actually sold the whole business case with the business champion to another company which was in a better position to implement this particular business case. We also sold our first company about 2 years ago. So when you have a cluster of companies working together and finding synergies, you find that some of these companies grow into directions which are non-aligned. We created an incubator almost 18 months ago, Koros Works. Koros is the Greek for space. And Koros Works really is an application incubator. So it's a place where we can accommodate people which have ideas of how to use geospatial location-based information into business cases which they find in their particular context. So that's been going strong, and that's been growing. We're now into the retail space. We are in the property and a number of other areas of applications. And then finally, we also created our first joint venture. We're in the process of creating another one, New Space Systems, where we partner with, in this case of New Space Systems, we're partnering with a company in the Netherlands to create companies and to exploit new opportunities within the market. So when we started out SES, it was all about, we know how to build satellites. Yes, it is engineering challenging, but to create a sustainable business around the core competencies of satellite engineering was really the question that we're trying to answer. How do you create a long-term sustainable enterprise around that core capability and making it easy to use the infrastructure and make it easy to apply in different contexts is essentially what we are implementing within SES, the aerospace group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CS. Take a seat. We have one speaker left, which I'm also very excited, which is a startup company which comes from Singapore. We heard yesterday already about space debris, and there's a big market for that, or at least opportunities. And I'm very honored that you made it. Nobu, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. So IF members, thank you for having me here today. This is a pretty big honor to me. Several years ago, I was in IT industry. So I attended so many entrepreneurship meetings, and the people were just wearing a T-shirt, jeans, and the venue are held in garage or conference hall. But this space entrepreneurship meeting is everybody's wearing suits and jackets and held in the palace. Well, this is quite different. But I really like this manner and tone, and that's one of the reasons why I love space industry. Well, 2.5 years ago, I found space debris issue is kind of a growing threat, but I was struggling. I really wanted to tackle this issue by myself, but I was struggling because it's not easy at all. I'm not rich. I am not space engineer. But one day, a guy from SpaceX told me we need someone who comes from outside the space industry and who has a passion for space. And actually, the SpaceX pushed me to set up my company. That happened 2 years ago. And then I asked my wife, I have a serious discussion with you. I really want to set up a space company. Do you agree with me? And she asked me, Nobu, how much saving we have? We have around 400,000 US dollars. Okay, so you can use 200,000 US dollars. That's the beginning. And I don't allow you to, spend even 1 cent more. That's what my wife told me. Okay, so when we're young, I honestly tell you where we are. Okay, so our mission is to make space ever sustainable, and so that we can continue using the space safely. And we are headquartered in Singapore, established in 2013 May. So this is only 800 mornings since I started this company. Now we have 50 members. We are headquartered in Singapore, and we have a manufacturing facility in Japan. Until setting up this factory in April, we were using university facilities for development. But in the end, we were lucky to set up our own building. So that lady is head of engineer in Japan. And at the opening party, NASA, JAXA, and other government sectors all welcomed our setup. So that's a good moment for us. So what we do right now, we are having 3 projects. The one is we are developing a satellite called IDEA. We have to cope with 2 things for tackle space debris. The one is micro debris. The other one is large debris. The micro debris, the problem is there's no clear data of the composition of the kind of a density of the micro debris in 800 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers. So we're going to launch a satellite which will detect the micro debris and find out the mapping out the micro debris. And the second one is by the way, the IDEA will be launched next year. The second one is Address 1, which will tackle against a large debris, like rocket upper stages. We just displayed this mock-up in Paris Air Show last week, and it was huge. We got huge attention there, and that will be launched in 2017. Yes, and also we have kind of project which will raise passion for space among ordinary people. We are now collecting the message from the Asian kids and bring them to the moon, as a time capsule. So to raise more awareness about what's going on in space industry and raise passion for space. Oh, yes. So Frank asked me to show the struggles I have been and having, and instead I showed what we have been doing by month. So it's been only 26 months, and I don't explain much. Okay, on the 7th month we had a first customer, so that helped us, for intermediate revenue, because there's no market for debris removal. We have to survive until we set up an international framework. So we have to have an intermediate revenue, and so we are lucky. We are profitable from the first year. And okay, so 11th month we set up the team, Space Sweepers, and we got 14 members. On 12th month, I had a luck to make a speech on TED. After that, we got lots of exposure to the media. That was quite lucky for us to, to raise awareness of a company, or also the growing threat of the space debris issue. Then blah blah blah. This January, we had a first fundraising, Series A, and raised $7.7 million US. And the implication of this is investors feel more comfortable. They can get a return in the space industry. My company is not in US. Even outside the US, even small capital, they feel like it's worth spending some money in the space industry. So 2 months ago we opened a manufacturing factory. Okay, so the future, I think we're gonna have a Series B, and launch EDR, Address One, and so within 5 years since establishment, we hope we can show the full demonstration. This is a technology for tackling the space debris. This is a business model we can do, and this is a kind of a legal framework which we propose. In the future, we are planning to have own orbit servicing. So that's all what I have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. For the audience, we will have latest questions from the audience, and we will run micros around the audience. But I want to start right with Nabu. When we see the TED Talk, so there were some soft factors which really helped you to raise the right awareness. Was that making really the difference? Was that helpful? Also the agreement with JAXA to show to the outside? Because when I speak with my bosses and engineers, they say engineering support is the only thing which helps. But I heard now from all the talks that might be a little bit different. Okay,
thank you, Frank. So actually, space industry knows about how serious space debris issue is, but ordinary people don't know anything, and so it's quite important for us to, tell the story, what's going on in space, in news media, or CNN, CNBC, whatever. That will eventually, imply the investors, something wrong is happening to the space debris. So that, space environment, so that will eventually, come to a decision to make investment to us. That had a significant difference.
I remember, Scott, when you started, I think you was the first winner of the Copernicus Master. Is that right? Where we see us, was that helpful? Made that a difference? How important is I think these marketing, these soft factors for companies like you, because you have raised quite a lot of money. You at your IPO, so.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with marketing is that 50% of it doesn't work. You just don't know which 50% doesn't work. So you have to do a lot. We do, because Earthcast is a good story, because it kind of bridges the space station and different countries, Canada, the US, Russia, international. We've had a lot of media. It helps, in my opinion, on all different fronts. From hiring, it's hard to find space engineers. It's hard to get technical expertise often. So we push it, we drive it, we have a strategy, we focus on it, and in certain cases it's been incredibly successful, and other times you just feel like you're spending a lot of time doing nothing.
Okay. I hope this is not the case for this event, of course. Any comments from Max or Michael? Is that something, Max, I remember you made a pretty cool video with the European Patent Office, which I'm always happy to show. How important is these soft factors for you to be successful, or how much it helped?
Well, I think obviously, I mean, in terms of raising funding, I think your question is related to. What we find is it's sometimes it's just a numbers game, you know. Like most people see you as a very high risk proposition. It's just the essence of being a startup. So a lot of the time, the more exposure you can get to people that can possibly invest in you can help. So, you know, our first major investment from a private investor came. I don't know if you saw our demo day pitch in the Startup Bootcamp about a year ago. We closed over 100K within a week of that pitch, and the audience was 400 investors in that room. So, you know, before that, we'd maybe had exposure to 30, 35 private investors. So that, I would say it's just a matter of you know, getting your message out there to as many people as possible, and at one point someone's going to click with it.
Has somebody received investment from space industry, by the way? So this is a question maybe to the audience. So the traditional, you know, we work with Shell Ventures and Philips Venture, but nobody of you. Okay, this maybe is the first advice I'm collecting here. When I look shaking heads, you have to create your own luck. The space industry have to create your own luck. So maybe some support. Did you receive at least support, technical support, opening doors? Okay, now I changed the subject. Yes, you said South Africa had no space agency. Is that the advantage, having a new space agency? They must be coming with no new old policy which they have to come up. So is that advantage? They're totally open to endeavors like you?
Yes, thank you. So the space agency in South Africa is actually a big help to us, because they are now organizing and raising awareness. They are assembling resources, federating users. They are federating the actual industry itself, the engineering industry. There's actually a space program. There's actually an institutional budget available. So from our vantage point, it's a big advantage to have the African Space Agency alive and well and active and investing in space programs. Of course, the investment in an autonomous capability for a country is not quite the same as investing in a commercial capability of a company. So we find ourselves that we are considered to be the private space company, and we provide services and support to the government space program. But the government space program have their national objectives which they are trying to achieve, and it's also there are value propositions within the space investment that only governments can realize, and that is exactly what's happening in South Africa.
How's the feeling with the other colleagues? Because my own organization is not always the most flexible one, to be frank, and we try to change it, of course. But there's a reason why we have the incubator program. How is it in Canada? How is it? You had the agreement with JAXA. How supportive are they, and what they have to change to be even more supportive? So this is the floor today where you can be very frank. Yeah? We have somebody who's writing all the things down without names. That's the deal.
Honestly, JAXA is helping us a lot nowadays. But 2 years ago, we are kind of an extraordinary outsider. But
you were alien, huh?
Alien. And now I hope we are perceived as unique insider. So to reach to this stage, it took a long time. Because, so by the media, by making team, by showing the concept to the conferences, I think we submitted more than 7 papers to the like ISC or whatever. So I think that kind of each effort eventually came to the stage when we can have communication channel with the space agencies.
That means the hurdle to enter is very high. So this is what they have to lower. Is that they have to be more open for aliens, crazy ideas, newcomers?
I think that question is toward space agencies. Since I've come so far, I don't feel it was hard, but I think it is not easy.
Other comments to that? So, because I think in Russia, I think you did quite.
Yeah, I think it's our responsibility actually to influence the space policy of the country, because we are still outsiders. We are still outside of traditional space, but it gives us the excellent privilege. We can talk things that people inside cannot talk. So I think the new space company has the huge potential actually to influence the space policy of the country, and we see and we feel this. Actually, the whole discussion about new space, about small satellites, about like constellations, we created in Russia just by ourselves. All this media come, and now you come to space agency and everybody talk, yeah, we need to do like Russian Skybox, we need to do Russian Planet Labs, we need to do Russian SpaceX. They didn't know these names at all. We translated to Russians this stuff because most of them, no, not most, only some of them speak English. So I think it's extremely important to educate the bureaucrats, the traditional space. And so it works. Now it's a big competition in Russia, for example, who will build the next Russian Skybox. And all Russian enterprises, like a big enterprises with 10,000 people, they said, yeah, we built this Russian Skybox, we know how to do it. And we just like...
You want to add something, Scott? You're nodding always your head. Don't keep it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Mikhail said, space is hard. It's hard. It's expensive, building satellites, getting them launched. Everything about space is hard. And when you get into a space business, it's typically a high-risk business. It was for us. You have to raise a bunch of money, invest in it, build the infrastructure, act like a global company with regulatory and safety and lots of geopolitical issues that have come up. So you have to act like a large company with the infrastructure of a large company before you actually turn on any product. That was our case, and so we've raised about $200 million and only just entered revenue. And so if that's the business model, it's incredibly difficult. It's just a bad business model unless you can somehow navigate your way through that, and it's easier to fail than it is to succeed in the space business, without a doubt. And there's it's just lots of examples of that. So it's hard on every single front.
When we look into, you raised 200 million. I think all of you raised money, which is I think not easy. Who is investing in these venture? This is yesterday we discussed that this is the difference between Europe and America. Here in Europe we call it risk capital, where in the Anglo-Saxon countries we call it venture capital. And also there, because I think this is nobody who says, okay, this is super risky. It's risky, might be, but I see it as a venture. Who really invests in these things? It's not the corporates which are in the space field, and not the space agency really. So are there entrepreneurs themselves, business angels, and how hard it was to get that money? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean, I can give our experience. Incredibly hard. It's changed in the last 4 years. I think 10 years ago, it was probably virtually impossible if you weren't a Boeing or a Lockheed or a European Space Agency entity, whatever it was probably virtually impossible. And it all changed with Skybox, frankly. It all changed with Skybox. Some guys out of Silicon Valley came up with a satellite. They had a plan, they had a vision. They launched one. There was another couple in the warehouse ready to get launched, and then Google came in and effectively bought them for about $1 billion post-valuation. And with that, all the other VCs in North America suddenly said there's just a river of money going there. And so now there's lots of constellations planned. There's Planet Labs with a valuation of $1 billion, Black Sky, which is another constellation. They've raised money. Earthcast with a valuation of approaching $500 million now. And so investors follow other investors. And right now is probably the best time in history if you're in the space industry at different segments to try to come up with an idea and capture the imagination of some angel investors to raise the first few $100,000, and then some other angel investors, and try to keep some momentum going. But at the end of the day, it'll be far more expensive than what you thought. That's a fact.
Yeah. I think Scott is right. Now the space and new space, it's like somehow fashion. I mean, it's scary at the same time, and we actually, the worst dream of us if like one of the big venture actually failed. I mean, what will happen? Like, can you imagine one of these like multi-$100 million venture will fail, and after this, it can be like a death. It will be like the death done for 10 years, 20 years when investors start to look in this area again. But now it's good, and not only in North America definitely leading here, but you see, I mean, the people is everywhere from the world, from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from Eastern Europe. Now a lot of the money, private money, also government money, like Development Institute. And specifically in Russia, it was created, especially during the time of the presidency of Mr. Medvedev, the very good infrastructure for support of like different activity. All this Rostana Corporation, the Russian Venture Corporation, Skolkovo Foundation, and actually in Russia, the sources of the money still now, even with the economical problems, more than good projects. So we don't feel, let's say, lack of the money. We feel lack of the business opportunities. It means for us to raise money is actually easier than find profitable, really profitable business opportunity. So I think it will last for 2-3 years until the first big crash. It will happen. The only question when it will be this public disaster. And so everybody in the right to get money until before this.
Just like to add to the conversation there. I absolutely agree with what Scott was saying before, that the space sector is a hard sector to operate in. Basically, your costs are high. There's a lot of infrastructure and hardware investment that you have to make, and well, there are certain limitations to what kind of business you can create if you're launchers, if you're Earth observation, if you're satellite operator. And that's fine, that's good. But I think the space sector has a huge amount of potential to spin out into other commercial sectors, in our economy as well. And well, I actually see on this panel, I'm the only one that's actually working outside the space sector at the moment with space technology. And I think there, what we found is that you have this great technology and there's so much going on in projects, and our CO2 capture mechanism is still cutting edge and the best out there. But it took us 4 or 5 years to find a business model, and we needed a lot of advice and a lot of coaching. So I think that's important, and we wouldn't have got anywhere without the resources that ESA were able to lend us, the lab equipment and the expertise. And well, that's very costly, and that's very valuable for a startup that has nothing but an idea.
This is a nice one. So that means the advisor heard from Max is thinking about recycling from the beginning, especially the big corporations. And now even our new startup companies, do you think already about recycling your technology in other areas, or you're just focusing on, because I understand that the big corporates are not doing that, or only limited, If you see, Airbus is not making money with spin-outs, yeah, at not least 10%. But theoretically, this is the advice you said they could. Are you thinking about that? That you said this technology is cool, but it's not our thing. We sell it, and we're thinking of so not doing the mistakes of the big guys.
If I can answer that. So when we created SES, we made an explicit decision to be technology agnostic. So we don't mind which technology we use in our spacecraft, and which technology we use for designing subsystems and systems and missions for our customers. The question is, what is the appropriate problem to solve, and what is the appropriate solution to this particular problem? And that has freed us up to an incredible number of different projects which we are working on. So we work, the smallest satellite that we've worked on is 25 kilograms, with the capability of a satellite that the same team designed 10 years ago, which was 250 kilograms at the time. And the largest satellite that's been working on is more than 1,000 kilograms. And because we don't mind whose technology we use and who we partner with in terms of a technology supply chain perspective, we can be extremely picky and choosy as to which subsystems, which functional areas, which major components we focus on, and which of those are effective within the satellite engineering market. So we have just recently decided not to pursue a specific major component where we have all the intellectual property, for the simple reason that it doesn't make any business sense to pursue this particular track. So freeing ourselves up found ourselves to be able to do much more.
Anybody something to add, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, our model is that there's only so many things that we can do with our pictures of Earth from space, and if we can take it, wrap it up, and typically, historically, Earth observation imagery is stored in a warehouse. It's stored in a clean room. It's not accessible. If you call up and say, I want a picture of the Amazon because we're doing some forestry monitoring project, oftentimes up until just a few years ago, you'd have to fax that in, and then you get a CD mailed to you, and that may take you a week to get it. So a distribution system that was built in the 80s, frankly. And so with the cloud, which has only been around the last few years, it's possible to take these huge geospatial databases that get into the terabytes, petabytes, and take that and open that up to a whole new source of app developers. That's 5 or 6 people working out of their basement using data that they've never been able to get their hands on to build a business on. And so we're trying to open source it, give it away, partner with them in the revenue going forward. But we think there's ability to grow the industry in ways that, frankly, have never been imagined up until just a few years ago.
I think this is also a trend we see when we're looking to the work we do together with SAP on the HANA Cloud platform for Earth observation, but also people like Game Changer and Shell Ventures and the CTO office of Shell. So we have much more, and this is the question to you all, do you feel at all that really non-space industry, traditional oil and gas, other industry, approaching you, looking for solutions? Because I have the feeling that the rest of the space industry, they're cooking in their own, soup. So I don't know how you should call that, but they're not very open for new customer relations.
Yeah, it's actually sometimes non-space companies is more fast in adopting the space technology from new space company, because traditional space companies they're sometimes arrogant to us. I mean, and I think there are some truth for this. We're definitely doing something like a unprofessional, simple, cheap, and they are working on a serious stuff. And actually, my point as a person who before created and ran a couple companies with $1 billion and thousands and thousands of people, that for the big companies, except for very few exceptions, start to invest too much in innovations, it's very dangerous. For them, it's easy to look around, and if somebody found like good business model, it's easy to buy them, because these big companies, they have easy access to the capital. And so I understand the traditional space players that they are not now looking at us because we almost nobody really confirmed like a business model. We need to confirm business model first. But at the same time, I think these like attempts of the big companies try to do the same. What we are doing is just like a useless spend of the money. They will never do this. I mean, because it's very difficult inside big corporation to make innovations. You need to walk every day looking on your stock exchange price with big customers, to sit in the White House, in the Congress Hall, I mean, talking with all these guys for the budget, and just try to, let's say, spend some couple $1 million for CubeSat, and the decision will be made of your, let's say, subordinate of your subordinate of your subordinate. I mean, it's just better to throw out this money at all.
But isn't it when you purchase a small company, when you are a big corporate, you assimilate them, so the innovation is immediately killed? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, as soon as they found like a business model, you accumulate this business model. You kill innovation, and you need to kill innovation. You don't need innovation inside big company. It's poison inside big company. Because startup, the companies that do not have business model yet, they try to use innovation to find this business model. Big company already have business model. Profitable business model. The business model with EBITDA, with profit that you can put on the stock market. So yeah, when big company buys small company, they need to kill innovation first. And second, just to integrate this business model inside their business. So this is then the exit for the small companies? It's one of the exit. I mean, it's definitely one of the exit. And you see how many, like, for example, in IT industry, all these like a big like dragons who consume a lot of the companies like Google, Apple, who like buying hundreds and hundreds of companies every year. In the space area, I think it will be the same, but it's not yet. I mean, we don't have yet this like the rich soil. I mean, it should be many companies, and we will see. The first example was Skybox. It was acquired by Google, because Google now is, let's say, it's a geospatial. I mean, it used to be already a geospatial company for a long time, but now it's aerospace company also. So we will see soon, I think, several big deals when like big companies acquire like small companies. But it looks like now not too much companies a confirmed business model yet. What should be the role of the governments from or the space agencies or the big space companies? What you would, let's say, this is my wish list this Christmas, Santa Claus is coming passing, I give him a letter with three bullets. Yeah, I don't say that you get it, huh? But at least we assume it's Christmas.
So setting up
beside the big check of money, of course. You know,
setting up. So the biggest single obstacle to establishing space infrastructure is establishing the space infrastructure. So I would be really excited if the South African Space Agency would say that they have an investment in a national space program, but they would like to partner in making sure that whatever is established is also useful for providing commercial services. That would for us be a first prize.
You have three, by the way. Huh?
Let me go just one. You know, space industry is one of the things I am struggling is a war for talent and a war for technology. And I think talent is scattered around the world, and technology are also scattered around the world. I would like to grab them as freely as possible. Freely means no regulations. But the space industry has a lot of regulation. I understand it. But still, as a venture, I like to have a more easier way to connect all the scattered talents and scattered technologies. That's it.
And this is easy. We speak after the event because this is what we do. We are the recycling office of a lot of technology, so we see what we can do.
We will knock the door. Okay, thanks.
Scott.
Yeah, it's... you know, on one hand, the problem with governments is the big difference between space agencies and government and startups is that if startups don't have the money to make payroll by the end of the month, they're out of business. And so everything happens immediate, fast. Government budgets are 2 years behind, or they're in doubt for next year, or they're getting cut, or it takes 6 months to go through the application process. And by that time, the business has moved on. The startup has, the people have either decided this is too hard, or they've moved on, or they've got the help from elsewhere. So startups and governments don't generally mix. Outside of a framework, a incubation perhaps, outside of the very early stage in just providing initial assistance to startups, once you get to a few employees, 10 employees, and you're trying to make payroll, and you're worried about how you're going to pay for the flight to go, whatever, it's nominal. I think the other way that governments can help is actually by staying out of the way and allowing businesses and startups and entrepreneurs who have ideas and some vision and maybe have gotten lucky on a couple of things to do whatever they do. But when you get to space, it's an incredibly regulated business. ITAR and the whole framework for all those things, if people knew how difficult getting into a space business was going to be when they were starting it, I suspect very few people would.
Okay. Max? Well, you've got ISA-BIC already. There are a lot of incubation centers around. If you look at the commercial sector, like you mentioned, Shell Game Changer program, you look at also university sector, like MIT has a venture creation program. These are these programs that really, they really help grow the team and the people. So they really actively mentor the people, the team, give them the advice they need. They have a lot of technical people coming out of the space sector trying to found a company are technical people. They have zero business experience basically, and that's an issue, I would say. So creating a kind of a environment within the organizations that kind of like the Pirate Bay at Apple, where they can grow and they can spin out their ideas. Maybe that's a solution, but honestly, I'm not an expert in the sector.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree that space area is probably one of the most regulated, and this creates a lot of obstacles for the company to work. You are dealing with so many different regulations in different countries. Export regulation, technology transfer, frequencies, space debris, launch, safety, all this stuff. And for small startup with just a few people, it's definitely difficult to manage this, because you cannot have the whole scope of like even legal people who can do all this stuff, and it's pretty costly. So this is probably one of the like a big obstacle for companies, for small companies, newcomers, to do something. And second, this like a public attention and all this hype around space industry. It's also, I mean, do not help, because everybody waiting miracle from you. So we wait the moment when space business become boring, profitable business that generate cash. And in this case, I think we need to be just normal business, because now it's too much myth around the space, too much like fantasies. I mean, so we need like confirmed business models and profitable startups, profitable companies.
I take that on board, because we always say in the ISA incubation, we try to treat our startups as like our kids. Sometimes they need a gentle smack, and not always, no. But we treat them with a lot of love, and this is, if they're successful, we are successful. And maybe our colleagues in the other organizations or in higher ranks copy that a little bit, because when you're successful, it comes back to us, the innovation. Audience, you have to earn your coffee break. So therefore I give you a little bit time, so we have enough time for questions out of the audience. Especially with that board, it should be super easy. Do we need one of the mics in the audience? No, we have extra ones. Excellent. So, who want to raise a question? Mr. Vöschel first. Can we have the mic here, please?
Thank you very much. I have actually a more general question. But first of all, I would like to say that I was very impressed about the 5 presentations. Of course, they are all success stories, and I wish all of you the biggest success. and I continue to call you young entrepreneurs, even if this was criticized yesterday, but I mean not young in age, but I mean young in mind, and you are certainly young in mind. And I was, especially our Russian friend, I wish you all the success despite these very political circumstances you are living in. And I was very impressed about our South African colleague to found a company, a space company, years before a space policy and program and agency exists. That is courageous. Congratulations to that. I'm an advisor to ESA and the Bavarian government, and one of my fields is actually technology transfer. And the Bavarian government has just raised recently €100 million budget for young entrepreneurship. And I would like to ask the following question. I'm not speaking about money. I know that money is always needed in order to generate startups, but could you give me an advice what should be done in order to create a sustainable incubation process for whatever amount of money? What could be done better in the future in order to support you from the non-financial point of view? You said governments should stay out of the business, but at least you like their money, and therefore they also have to have a certain control over the things, and we could advise them how to make things better in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Feustel. To repeat, they have this 100 million, and there are trends to do something new, using something existing like the ESA BICS. So when you say, okay, you have this $100 check, and you are sitting now in the board of the advisor, or even in the government, so what I do with that? I split it, I do two things, one thing. So what you would love if you to be received on the other side?
Don't invest it all in startups. Invest it in the network and the program around them, the mentors, the training facilities. That would be the first piece of advice I would give. The second piece: make your selection very competitive. Don't just give them the money, but and keep the money flexible that you do give them. And they give them some freedom of how they like to spend it, because it's almost impossible to predict in a startup what your budget is going to look like in a year from now.
This is a criticism also to our program.
No.
Because no, it's fine. I take that because our money is really only for hardware. You say, come on, I have to travel. Travel budget is hard to get. Yeah, and when you travel to events, you have to sit on the panel and not in the audience because nobody otherwise is listening. So okay.
My experience is that hardware investment is one of the smallest costs we've had developing the company, and it's manpower really that's the highest cost in the startup.
We take that one as advice.
Yeah, I think the main advantage of you is just like Bavaria. I mean, like a good beer, food, safety, everything. I mean, it's actually a God-blessed land. So many people want to live here. So many people want to move here. So now everything is global. I mean, so many entrepreneurs with ideas can move and can be here. The main advice: just look global. I mean, now like Russia problems. Invite entrepreneurs from Russia. Help them to get visas, working visa. Help them to create their companies from different countries. The world become global, and the main advantage of Bavaria is quality of the life. So when people say, okay, I need to move somewhere with my kids, with my family to create venture, definitely Bavaria, it's like California, even better, because in the center of Europe, you are just like, this is the main advantage. And so by inviting people outside of Germany, outside of Bavaria, different nationalities, this is I think the main advice.
We are not successful yet, but what at least I can say is we've been very careful about set up the team. We need a lot of capabilities. Like for business development, we got a great team member from ex-IAF. For marketing, we got a great team member from ex-global ad agency. For accounting, we got from ex-Goldman Sachs lady. So we are lucky. And for engineering team, we try to mix the young engineers plus senior experienced engineers like ex-JAXA, ex-large corporation. So for non-financial viewpoint, I think to make the startups to be sustainable, maybe you or surrounding people can help the startups to provide more capabilities, like in any part, engineering, accounting, or marketing, or business development. I think no organization is perfect at all. So we need one piece. If we get one piece from somebody else, that'd be wonderful.
Scott, CS?
Yeah, I think, to Mac's point, if you build the infrastructure, build kind of the framework, build the programs that allow entrepreneurs, so incubation programs, of course, are helpful. The other thing we might advise would be to invest into the universities who are actually developing some of the IP, and then making the framework for that IP, and I'm not sure what the system here is in Germany, but often the framework to get IP out of universities can be difficult. And so if you can set up a system where the IP can be transferred out of the universities quickly, easily, it makes a world of difference to fund up the startups.
CS, you want to comment something?
Yes, I think in addition to all the things which have been said, the one thing which is really difficult from a space engineering startup is actually getting into space reliably, on time, and at an affordable rate. So just sponsoring a series of launch events over a period of a number of years and having a competitive opportunity per launch event in the class of 5 kilogram, 10 kilogram, 20 kilogram, doesn't really matter, would certainly give a lot more groups of people at universities in particular the opportunity to pursue, to say, but we can do this, and there's a way to get into space. So that would certainly make a big difference. In the first 18 years that I've been involved in space engineering, I've been waiting for a launch for 9 of those 18 years. And that's devastating if you want to build a sustainable commercial enterprise based on space infrastructure.
So you would like to have the startup fast tracks launch?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's a cool idea. Other questions? Yes, please. Now we get the critical questions, do we? No, just kidding.
I'll be nice. So I do have a question. There's been a lot of conversation around the differences between American and European entrepreneur culture. And one of the things that I've noticed most distinctly is exit strategies. So a lot of you did take private capital, venture capital funds. In those discussions, what did you present as your exit strategy, and what do you see, or do you see your exit strategy? Are you looking at going IPO, going into the stock market? Some of that was mentioned earlier. Are you hoping to be bought out by a larger corporation, as examples were also mentioned on this panel? Or are you hoping to become a long-standing institutional company, as it seems that some of the panelists have discussed as more of a European model?
Yeah, I mean, so we did IPO, we did go public. We raised about $45 million in that process, and I've raised a couple $100 million total. And it was not an exit strategy. It wasn't. It was a financing strategy. There's really only one. There's only one reason to be public, and that's to raise money. Everything about being public is bad, except the good thing, which is massive, and it kind of overshadows the bad. So, in our mind. Although we think we will be a strong acquisition target for everybody that you can probably imagine, our goal is to build a long-standing company, and not exit. It's just to build a company that lasts for as long as it can last. Although it gets harder and harder as you get to be a better acquisition target for a Google or Yahoo or Nokia or someone like that.
For me, it was not easy at all to show a strategy, because there's no market for debris removal, no competitor. That's why there's no strategy. But what I convinced the venture capitals in a different way. Space segment is growing. You have portfolio like IT, high tech, bio, education, whatever. But if you don't bet on the space, you lose the bus. So that's one of the way I approached the venture capital. And among the space industry, there are not a lot, but hundreds of the space venture capitals. So among them, I explained a lot, why we are prominent. We are so, great. But that's all for what I did for Series A. Maybe Series B, we need more strategy. Yeah.
What maybe also changed that some investors say, damn, I have nothing related to space in my portfolio. I have to do something because everybody's doing that. So that might be that also maybe not a very solid strategy is overlooked. But who wants to comment on that in general, the question, or we want to leave it there? CS?
Yeah, so the overall goal of the company that we created in 2008 is to be a long-standing company. However, getting access to capital and growing the company requires a combination of the different strategies. So we are talking to a number of different investors, some of them who are listed on the stock exchange, not to only provide a capital injection, but also to provide access to markets where they are active in markets where we have products and services that can serve them. On the space engineering side, it's a different market space altogether. So in the space engineering side, we work in a form of joint ventures where we go into commercial constellations with different parties who have different business cases who want to pursue that, whether it be remote sensing, whether it be communications, whether it be for other applications. So there's a different business case and a different way in which we grow on that side.
Other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hello, Scott Hubbard here. One of the other hats that I wear in addition to Stanford University is editor-in-chief of the journal New Space, which is the only, as far as I know, peer-reviewed journal devoted to this area. Recent issue was devoted to the entrepreneurial remote sensing area, which I think, as Scott Larson and others have described, Mikhail and so forth, has a tremendous future. I introduced a year ago something called the Economist's Corner, where I give a colleague of mine from the Stanford Institute of Economic Policy Research a chance to write an opinion column. And he devoted one column to space debris. So I want to start this question with Nobuo Okada. He's argued that the market for space debris requires them putting a price on it. And he gave his opinion. I'd like to hear your opinion about how one would price a space debris market, and then maybe open it up to the other panelists.
I think, Nobuo, this is a question for you. Huh?
So your question is, how much cost we might need for removing space debris? Is that true?
Was that the question? Because it also was unclear.
Yes. How would, let's assume for a moment that some combination of industry and government sees the need to take a more proactive approach to removing space debris. Right now, the problem is one of people pointing at each other, saying, well, you're responsible, no, you're responsible.
So you speak about what is the business model of space debris?
Yes, and how would you put a price on it?
Okay, let me try to answer the question. I think now space industry is feeling we need tremendous amount of the cost to improve the space environment, but I don't think so. So that's my perception. We are now figuring out in a priority list, for what target, how many target, like mostly the upper rocket bodies, and how should we do? And I read so many papers. Maybe it takes $500 million to remove 10 large debris or blah blah blah. But we think we don't have to use that big money. It's maybe 1/10 or something like that. And so I think after showing our demonstration in 2017, I think we can propose with this money, not the big, with this money we can significantly improve the space environment. It's not huge money. And the problem is how we can split the cost, right? It takes a long time, but at least we are planning to show this money is required, not big, and this technology is enough, and how significantly we can improve the environmental criticality. So that's what I'm thinking. I hope I'm answering your question.
In the space debris, the problem will be not the technology, because I think this will exist. They have to think about the partners. If you have a recycling system like the Grüne Punkt, or like in the Netherlands, when you buy a car, you pay the recycling for later on. So who's paying? This is the issue. Other questions from the audience? Yes, there, on the right side, please.
One of the problems that was discussed was sourcing talent for the space industry and for the startups. But what exactly is the issue? Is it that you don't get young people that apply for startup positions, or is it their skill sets, or is it the lack of awareness that these startups exist?
That was related to teams that you get? I think this depends also very much on the country, The unemployment here in Bavaria is 2.7%. So it's hard to get people for everything. It depends, I think, very much on the region. Or do you get? Is that a bottleneck? Getting employees, getting the right employees. Is that an issue?
Yeah, it's always an issue, particularly as the technology gets more and more complicated. So we're building radar, which is incredibly complicated. It's a small industry. It's a niche industry. And the people who can build synthetic aperture radar, there's not many of them. They just don't come out of universities. It's not so much the young students, people coming out of university, it's experience. And when you're building space and you're sending something to space that is going to be expensive, you really want the thing to work. And so that comes with experience. That comes with people who have been in the space industry for a number of years and have launched, who have heritage. So it's not easy. It's not an easy situation. It's hard to source talent when you get into some of those niche markets.
And for the rest, I think this discussion we had yesterday, when you're looking to Europe, there are societies which are completely changing. When you're looking to Greece, Portugal, Spain, but also Italy, where you had this lifelong safe job. This has changed. So we see that there are more startup companies, very skilled people, young people are on the market, because the risk having no job, having a traineeship for zero money, or creating a startup company is always the same risk. So this is the positive side of the crisis. Any other? Yes, please.
Just to add to that, startups also don't have recruitment agencies working for them. So, a lot of the time the way we met all our people that work with us is either through our network or that they've approached us.
So you have to love what you do. Last question here in the audience on the right side, please.
I have a more subjective question. So as startups grow, go public, take private investors' money, and are subject to their exit strategies, how do you still keep the entrepreneurial attitude going on in a startup? Because that is the challenge that you are always faced with. You're growing big, this tremendous pressure from private investors, you are a public company, but then how do you keep the core essence of entrepreneurial going on within the organization? I mean, more subjective, and there may not be a one-size-fits-all answer or an ideal answer to this.
Who wants to take it? My personal comment, I have worked for Apple until 2000, and I was CFO and CEO of a startup company with 350 people in the peak. It's super hard to keep it, If you have a big shareholder, it's always, you try to find your way. To keep the spirit, the fish, we have a saying, the fish always starts to stink from the head. So if the board is living still, the dream helps. If the board are bankers from abroad taking over the company, it might be different. So that was my situation. And then you have to make your own decision. Either you stay there or you leave. So I don't know if you want to comment, but...
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Frank. I think the beauty of space is that a certain segment of the population grew up wanting to work for a space company, be an astronaut, be involved in space. You grew up looking at the stars or whatever it is, and so people who are involved in space are typically incredibly passionate about it. We have about 170 employees. We have 20 or 25 down in San Francisco, and they're getting recruited from every other tech company certainly on a weekly basis, offered far more money than we could ever pay them, stock options and Facebook and everything else. It's ridiculous. And they get paid too much as it is to start with, and they're getting paid way more. So the only reason that we can hire and keep employees is because we're a space company. Frankly, if we were a data security company or something that perhaps people didn't grow up wanting to be part of, it's just not a chance. But to your point, when share prices go up, when people can exercise options, when you have young people who suddenly can exercise options and maybe they're worth $300,000 or $400,000, and why don't I go travel Europe or go live in Mexico for 6 months or do the types of things that people can do when they're in their 20s and have a little bit of money? It's incredibly hard. It's just it's hard on every single front. Being a space company is a huge hook, but as you go public and employees have some liquidity, it's tough.
Okay, don't give them so much option. This is the advice I got there here. I want to nearly close there. There's one thing which also brought to your attention. Our member states try even to change the SME policy in Asia, because they say, well, we have these great Asia bigs, but when we have small startup companies providing also pretty cool technology to Asia, in a lot of reviews and proposals they're rejected because there are only 2 people. And I think this is also advice we have to rethink. If we want to allow newcomers entering into the normal market, we have to give them a chance and not saying, oh, this company only exists 4 years and only 3 people, can't be good. So this is then we risk to exclude innovation and exclude the right innovation in our society, also in space. So this is something already some member states like Ireland and Switzerland are pushing. So that I hope so. Thank you very much for the panel. It was a pleasure to be with you. We have a coffee break. You can grab some of the speakers. You have earned, both of you, the coffee. So thank you very much for joining us.